Hello, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're watching this recorded video. Now, for today's video, we will be talking about non-digital and digital skills and tools in delivering technology-enhanced lesson. This is the start of a topic for the second half of the semester that you will be going to undergo. And so, to start with a new topic, we are going to talk about the digital and the non-digital skills and tools in delivering technology-enhanced lessons. Now, later on, you will be integrating media and technology in various content areas, most especially on your field of specialization. And of course, you will be describing later on the different digital tools or what we call technological tools that are used in most of group activities nowadays. We will be using, I'll be introducing to you later on technology tools to collaborate and share resources among communities of practices. We will be creating later on a small community, I mean a community of learners within a group. And of course, we will be reflecting on the use of technology and its relevance and its appropriateness in the teaching learning process. All right, so teaching, okay, as what we all know, becomes very rewarding when learners get the most from instruction as manifested in their performance. An important element in engaging learners is when the strategy used in delivering the lesson uses an instructional material. Okay, so when properly and appropriately used, it can spice up a classroom activity. And so, with all the instructional materials that you are handling, may come in varied forms. One group refers to the conventional and digital tools. And a classroom will always need a chalkboard or a writing board, and that may come in varied forms and shapes as well. In fact, we have bulletin boards or flip charts, dioramas, puppets, terrarium, and the like. Even we can see it in the public schools. We'll always find their significance in any classroom. Well, however, nowadays, lessons can be made more relevant and engaging for learners as digital tools are integrated. So we'll be talking about all of those things as we go on with our discussion. The first topic that I'm going to introduce to you is all about the development and use of non-digital or conventional materials, which means to say that there is already an existing instructional materials available. It's just that how can we utilize them in in the delivery of the lesson. The second topic, we'll be talking about select and use ICT tools for teaching and learning. Okay, the select here is function as a noun, but not a verb. I mean, a select and use ICT tools for teaching and learning. And of course, topic three, okay, creating e-portfolio as a technology tools. Technology tools. All right, so for the first topic, okay, are you ready? For the first topic, we will be looking or we will be describing the procedures for developing conventional instructional materials. Okay, because this has something to do with development, meaning there is this already existing instructional material. And then later on, we are going to develop instructional material based on a given topic and, of course, and with the strategy, and then describe the factors to consider in revising media selections and delivery systems for given instructions. Okay, so the teachers that we have right now, the teachers need instructional materials that is to enhance teaching and learning. Instructional materials, who among you here can find? What comes in your mind when you hear the word instructional materials? Okay, ABLs. Have you heard it before with what is instructional materials? Okay, recall. Okay, but I would like to tell you that instructional materials are defined as print, and non-print items that are rested to impact information to students in an educational process. For example, drawing kits, textbooks, posters, magazines, flip charts, newspapers, very famous, dioramas, pictures, recording videos, and the like. So, instructional materials have several roles in teaching and learning. Number one, they promote meaningful communication and effective learning. Second, they ensure better retention. Okay, better retention. And third, actually, the instruction material will help to overcome the limited classroom by making it accessible. I mean, inaccessible, making it accessible, and then provide encouragement or encourage participation, especially if the students are allowed to manipulate materials that is being used. Okay, so let's have this kind of activity. I just wanted you to look around and then kindly look for 10 objects that are near to you right now, whatever or wherever you're watching this recorded video. Kindly look for 10 objects near you. Okay? Are the 10 subjects recognized? Were you able to identify already these 10 objects? Okay, have you experienced using those in during classes or at school? How about you're holding a pen right now? Or you're holding your cell phone? Did you experience using those during your classes or even at school? Okay, in what way does this help you along the way? How? Okay. And the third question, are those objects useful in your learning? In what ways do those subjects or objects helpful to you? Okay, so for sure, you are able now to identify the 10 objects near you and identify also their functions and their involvement in the teaching, in the learning process that you had with your different discussions in different classes during school or in an online setup. Okay, so for topic number one, which is about development and the use of non-digital or conventional materials. Now we are going to identify the roles of instructional materials. Okay. Second, we are going to identify factors to consider in developing instructional materials. What are the factors to develop? Third, conventional materials. What are the examples or few examples of conventional materials? Are these materials can be seen now in these days? Okay. How can we or how are we going to use these conventional materials in relation to your majors, in relation to your field of specialization? Of course, last topic, okay, the last subtopic will be guidelines when designing conventional materials, instructional materials. Now, we'll be able to know the rules. We are going to identify the factors and then identifying or selecting conventional materials. And then right after identifying the conventional materials, then we would like to know what are the different guidelines when designing an instructional material. Okay, for the first one, the role of instructional material is to promote meaningful communication and effective learning. That is true. To ensure better retention, which means to say that there is an enhancement, which means to say that the students or the learners will be able to grasp or to absorb the information um, given by the teacher or showed by the teacher if he can see, he can visualize, he can see the topic, you can see a tangible material, okay, which has a greater or longer effect, retention, longer retention of a learner. Okay, next is to help overcome limited classroom by making the inaccessible to accessible material. Okay, what I am trying to say about this one is there are a lot of scraps, or materials that are used already, and then we can actually reuse all of those materials, or not all, but we can actually make use of the used materials, making it accessible, making it an instructional material, and revising and recycling all of those things to make a better instructional material. Okay, next is to provide a common experience upon which late learning can be developed. Actually, instructional material will actually develop or enhances the capacity of a child, the working, the brain work, the brain of the child will actually, the learners will actually work better if you can see, if you can see something, okay, if you could be able to um, identify what is this object, what are the steps, okay, if there is the, if there are things that is needed to be flashed on the screen, then it is really better, because actually for a person, it it is actually important to see, you know, what is significantly on highlighted by the teacher or by the facilitator of the learning. Okay, so that is why in that case, if there is an instructional material, the learning will be better, because the processes of acquiring, of learning will be developing. I mean, will be developing, meaning it's the process of honing, developing, progressing. And so the last one is encourage participation. Next subtopic is about what are the factors to consider in developing instructional material. Number one, to develop a storyboard. Okay, that is to develop a storyboard and work outline based on the subject goals and objectives. It's the basic one. Next is to identify existing institutional resources, including the materials and teachers' capability. Okay, and then the teacher may research off-the-shelf materials that have been developed by others, that is to determine if their approach could be useful, and then explore the possibilities by adapting concepts of other teachers without infringing on another, or I mean on anyone's copy protected design. Okay, and then modify existing materials based on the objectives if the lesson of the lesson, and of course if the instructional materials are effective, then you can share them with other teachers. Now all of those things are hints or um, salient points that you could actually consider in developing instructional materials. If you could see an instructional material over the internet, you can modify of all of those things and then bring that in the classroom. I am saying of all those tangible materials that are actually necessary in the teaching learning process, okay, as a whole. Okay, and the teacher developer can also sell his or her materials available. This is an advantage if you are the one who created the instructional material. Okay, because you can actually sell it in the Amazon. In fact, I can actually see, you know, lesson plans, instructional materials, modules over the Amazon, which are paid, meaning I cannot access directly if I cannot put my bank account, like, if I cannot pay. So if you are a teacher, a professional in the field, if you're an expert in the field, and then you are selling an instructional material, I mean, you are creating an instructional material, you can be able to receive certain amount in lieu of in exchange of your instructional material. Okay, so it is very encouraging, right? So moving on to the next subtopic, that is about the conventional instructional materials. There are a lot, and these are just few conventional instructional materials. I am including this one because I wanted to introduce to you the different non-digital tools in delivering the instructional material. Okay, so basically, if we are to if you are to mean of instructional material, actually the instructional material will actually have a great help in stimulating and facilitating the learning of the learners. Okay, many media and many styles of visual presentations are actually useful in the language learner. If you are an AB English, ABLs, it is very useful because you can see, most especially in the transcription, the phonemes, the different sound symbols, you can be able, or the learner could be able to see what are the different sound symbols. Okay, and all audiovisual materials have positive contributions also to language learning as long as they are used at the right time in the right place. In the teaching and learning process, we have learners use their eyes as well as their ears, but their eyes are basic in learning. That is why, as I have mentioned earlier, that instructional materials is a great help. It is an aid. It is a help to visualize, to internalize what has been taught by the teacher. Okay, so moving on, what are the conventional instructional materials? Number one, we have diorama. Are you familiar with this one? Okay. Have you seen such dioramas when you were young in younger levels? High school, for example, in a science laboratory or in a computer laboratory. Have you seen? Okay, it will actually make this classroom to be more creative and innovative. The aesthetic appeal, the physical attribute and physical appearance of the classroom. It is a fun way to build an exciting scene in a small space. Dioramas are very small scenes created of layers of materials, all depicting similar concepts or theme, and they usually display a historical time period, a nature scene, okay? Or it could be a fictional situation. In developing diorama, you will choose a concept or theme, research the subject, make rough sketch of your ideal diorama because you will be sketching, and then making a list or make a list of the items you will be needing or gathering of your supplies. And then select a container or a box. Meaning to say, look for a container as a base. Okay, so technically, what you're going to do um in your diorama is you will be making, you will be preparing first concept. Choose a concept appropriate to your field of specialization. All right, so that's it. Second, conventional material. What is this? We have nature tables. And what is this nature table? This is a table. Okay, you have there at home. Do you have this at home? This is a table that contains objects. We have scenes related to the current season or upcoming festival. If we will be dealing with cultures, um, society, culture, and politics. No, we have a subject in the senior high school, society, culture, and politics. We also have subject cultural theory in the AB Lit program, and we can actually make nature table as part of an instructional material. Okay, most likely these kind of table are very visible in the elementary years. But how can we use this kind of instructional material when we are dealing with senior high school? Okay, how? Okay, if you are having a literature section, okay, most especially, when you are dealing with the different literary pieces, you can actually gather all the uh, say for example, your highlight of the month is about haikus in Japan, basho. Okay, so you will be dealing with all, not all, but those beautifully laden, created poems or haikus, sorry, of haikus of basho, and then placing it in a table, and then beautifying it and placing it aesthetically with beauty, with aesthetics. Okay, so that is to present also an art. Okay, or if you're dealing with And if you're dealing with the different artworks, you can actually display it in your room or in your classroom. Okay, we have art appreciation classes. We have in senior high school, we have under the UMS, okay, the humanities um, track. So actually, you can actually create or recreate of a table, mini table or mini store, and placing all those artworks in a table. Okay, so next one, this is also important. We have a writing board. Okay, a writing board can display information written with chalk. Okay, this is very conventional. We have chalkboard or the blackboard or special pens. Special pens are for whiteboard, by the way. And although there are usually more effective methods of transmitting information, the whiteboard or writing board is still the most commonly used visual aids. In fact, even in private schools, they are having this whiteboard. Okay, so suggestions on using the whiteboard. Number one, keep the board clean. So if you're a teacher and then you are writing all the notes in the board and you are discussing or you are showing or illustrating something, make sure when you leave the room waiting for the next subject or you're done with the first subject, then make sure to keep the board clean. Okay, then use chalk or pens that contrasts with the background of the board so that students can see the information clearly. If your board is white, okay, make sure that you are not using yellow highlighters, blue or sky blue highlighters, but rather you will be using the black pens. Okay, those have the shade of the color. Okay, then make text and drawings large enough to be seen from the back of the room. This is about visibility. Next is to prepare complex drawings in advance if very complex and overhead projector or overhead transparency may actually help. Because if you will be preparing a if you will be using a picture and that is not actually visible to the eye of the person, of the last person at the back, then it defeats the purpose of enhancing the lesson, the grasping of the lesson, but rather use an overhead projector, okay, or a projector. And then underline headings and important or unfamiliar words for emphasis or making highlighting techniques. When you will be using your laptops or using your cell phones, what are your highlighting techniques when you will be using MS Word? We have the bold, italize, and underline. That's one way of highlighting or emphasizing the text. But if we are going to deal with the materials that are hard bounded, should I say, tangible materials or tangible instructional materials, we can actually highlight that using underlining the word, what word is important or significant or being emphasized, underlining, okay, placing a asterisk, okay, it could also be encircling the word or the phrases, okay, and then do not talk while facing the board. Okay, when you deliver the lesson, do not talk when you're facing the board. Unless if you are um if you are explaining the whole process and you are in the middle of computing, most especially in mathematics, and I'm supposed that you will not be dealing with mathematics because you are in ABLs and AB Lit majors, and for sure you will be creating or you will be exposing yourselves in dissecting sentences and using literary pieces in dissecting sentences or non-fiction or fiction materials and getting the different parts, and different types of sentences according to structure, according to purpose, and so on and so forth. So when you deliver the lesson, do not talk the board, meaning do not talk while you're facing the board. Okay? Do not block the student's view of the board, meaning stand aside when writing or drawing is completed. Do not stay in front. Do not stay in the center, which the person at the back cannot see what's written on the board. Okay, this is very conventional. This is very conventional. But we don't know that in your future field of expertise you will be assigned to areas which doesn't have or which has less use of computers, of laptops. No, um, I want you to have this kind of idea that there are still areas in our area or in our country that are using conventional instructional materials, which actually will help you actually to release or unleash your creativity and passion in creating instructional materials. Okay. Next, instructional material, flip chart. Okay, how are you going to use this kind of flip chart? Have you seen this flip chart already? Okay, when you encounter um, networking businesses, okay, flip chart is very important. When you will be dealing with history, flip chart is very important. When you are presented with different products of a particular brand, for example, or even um, vehicles, okay, four-wheel vehicles, flip chart is also used or are being used as well. So, um, what is this flip chart for? What is this? Okay, it is a large tablet or pad of paper, usually on a tripod or stand. Okay, you can see the stand, you can see the blank page, the long, wide blank page there, and there is a stand, and that is a flip chart. When the chart or when the paper is already written by a teacher or by a person, you will just be flipping the chart. Okay, so how are you going to make a DIY flip chart? Now, if you will be assigned to a mountainous area or areas that are really remote, I mean, there's no chalkboard, there's no chalk, okay? There is just a pen and a paper, okay? So probably if you're a teacher from a lungsod or from an area who can actually go to an area and you can buy cartolina, you will be buying or you will buy cartolina and paper, and then probably you can have 10 cartolinas in flipping or 5 cart depending on the length of your topic, no? And if you have back part of the calendar, you can actually use that. But that is really the conventional way how that is the least that you can do if there are any if wala nagilaing option. Now, you can actually use cartolina. They use the back part of the calendar. You have Manila paper and then flipping them one by one when you are done with what is being said or what is being written on the front part of the chart. Okay, why is it that it is being flipped? Because from time to time you'll be going back to the first page, second page, and third page. This is advantage when when your audience or yes, when your learners needs some time to recall of the topic prior to the moment that you are telling a certain topic. I mean, you can actually go back, no, with the topic that you discussed just a minute ago. Okay, so that's also important. Now, suggestions. I will be sharing to you some suggestions when you will be using the flip chart. Number one, use wide tip pens or markers. Make sure that markers with narrow tips because it will produce printing that is difficult to read. I mean, markers with narrow tips, sorry, with markers with narrow tips will produce printing that is difficult to read. So make sure that you are using the broad one when you are going to buy pentel pen and in tindahan in your area, you will be asked if it is a fine or a broad. Now, make sure to choose the broad material because it will release a creative. Aside from its creativity, it will also have a broad lining or 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 ink in the chart, in the flip chart. Okay, then print it black patterns that are large enough to be read easily from the back of the room. Use different colored pens to provide contrast. This makes the pages visually attractive and easier to read, which means if you're using the white cartolina, make sure you are using the black or the shaded or the shade colors. Okay, and then use bullets. That is to delineate items in the page. Like if there's an emphasis, if the use of bullets will do. Leave plenty of white spaces and avoid putting too much information on one page because crowded and poorly arranged information is really distracting and difficult to read, most especially of the person sitting at the back. Okay, so when pages are prepared in advance, use every other page. If every page is used, colors will show through and make text difficult to read. Having masking tape available to put pages up around the room during brainstorming and problem solving activities. So to hide a portion of the page, fold up the lower portion of the page and then tape it up, and then when ready to reveal the information, remove the tape and then let the page drop. Okay, that is very important to know. Then face the student, not the flip chart, while talking. Okay, so that is important as well. Next one is zigzag board. Are you familiar with this one? How different it is from the flip chart. Okay, if the flip chart is you will be flipping each pages, for the zigzag board, it is actually a multi-board series of 3 or 4 rectangle boards, and then they are joined together along the sides by hinges so that they can be easily folded up and carried up. So each board can be of a different type. For example, a whiteboard, a chalkboard, or a funnel board, and so on. The size of the boards for the zigzag multiple depends on what you want to use for them. Okay, and then wall display. Displaying items in a classroom wall is well known, tried, and tested educational method. It's very true. A wall display is a collection of many different types of items and materials put up on the wall to make an interesting and informative display. So in your classroom, the display can consist of the students' artwork or own work. In development, in developmental work and development work, it can be used to convey information to the community. Okay, and then next we have rope and pole display board. This board consists of 2 horizontal poles tied loosely together with rope. Usually, visual aids such as posters can be pinned to the rope, and then this kind of display board is invaluable where there are few solid walls for displaying information. It has no solid backing and can be made quickly for teaching, training, and when working with communities. So if you're a person who is advocating education in the remote areas, highlighting the importance of education in an area which needs of attention to the children, for example, you will be joining a lot of pastoral works, then using this rope and pole display board can be applied. Okay, which means that you will just be using the different pictures to illustrate what has been transpired. For example, uh, um, you will be teaching the students or the learners of the different sound symbols. Okay, and then each sound symbol is placed in a card. Okay, and then add it to another card and another card, and so on and so forth. So this is just another way of presenting, okay, another way of showing your lesson. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to introduce to you are the guidelines when designing conventional instructional materials. Now, already given that there is this what we call conventional instructional materials. This is very obsolete, but this is proven and tested that it works very well in assisting and in helping the learners to learn better. Okay, so number one is unity, meaning to say only one idea for each visual aid and include a headline. Next is simplicity, which means make ideas and relationships simple and easy to recall. Okay. The third is legibility. As I have mentioned earlier, that you will be using letters which are legible or can be seen in the person at the back. Make sure it is big enough that can be seen to the last person at the back, sitting at the back in the classroom. Okay? And then consistency, meaning use the same type of styles and art style. Okay? And then clarity, meaning to avoid any type that is too small to read or avoid all capital letters. Okay? I can also seen students from this program, no, that are using all capital letters. Please avoid and do not practice using all capital letters, because this will actually um, will shape you in using all capital letters in your field of profession, pohon. So might as well right from this moment, do not practice using all capital letters, because when are you going to capitalize a letter? When it starts, when the word is starting or is used to start a sentence. When we are dealing with name of a person, places, okay, things, names in general. When we are dealing with names, barangay, the name of the barangay, the name of your cat, the name of your favorite dog, the name of your favorite movie, okay, and of course the titles, different titles, the books, for example, newspapers, magazines, and newsletters, and so on and so forth. So do not capitalize everything in a sentence, in an essay, in a selection. Okay, so that's it. Those are the guidelines to be united, to be simple, to be legible, to be consistent, and to be clear enough. Okay, so number six, sorry, the last one, sorry. Number six is equality. Make sure that it is neat and professional, and remember to proofread before presenting the instructional material. Okay, so this is the structure. I just would like to share to you this one. This, I guess you have your instructional materials development and evaluation subject last year, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, or the last 2 semesters. I just would like to bring you or lead you into these set up that instructional material. No? We have different types. We have non-print instructional material. We have the print instructional material, electrical instructional material. For non-print instructional material, it is also divided into two: projected instructional material and non-projected instructional material. For projected instructional material, we have films, projector, or what we call OHP or overhead projector, okay, and the opaque slides using the opaque slide, the film strips, um, using the film strips, the opaque slides, okay, and the non-projective instructional material. What are these? We have the chalk. We have the charts. We have realias and dioramas, okay. Realias and dioramas are those reflection of the reality usually. For example, you will be dealing with literary pieces, and then the literary pieces is actually dealing with nature. So you can actually have a visualization, present a visualization with the nature and presenting the literary piece. Okay, and for print materials, we have journals, books, newspapers, magazines, posters, handouts, pamphlets, and brochures. For electrical instructional materials, these are divided, or it is divided into three: audio instructional material, visual instructional material, and audio visual instructional material. Okay, and so these are the types of instructional material. I introduced you again this one because basi nakalimot mo, and I just would like to remind everybody of the different types instructional materials that you may be able to use this in your field of expertise or field of profession. Okay, so let's try to check if we could identify what is this instructional material, or if the label of this instructional material are correct. So how about this one? The first picture, you can actually see there the books. Is that correct? We have Homo sapiens, Brief History of Humankind, Sapiens, the Hilary Mantel Wolf Hall. We have the Jonathan Franzen, The Corrections, and all other books. I believe this is a book, and this is a thumbs up. Okay, next, we have magazines. Okay, that is actually another thumbs up. We have newspapers. So these days, we are having our newspapers as well. We have a lot of publications as well. So that is also a thumbs up because that's actually true. Pamphlets. Okay, that is actually true. We have overhead projector. So that is what we call OHP. Okay, overhead projector. If you're familiar with this one, it can be seen. Um, this is very famous in 19th century towards the 20th century. Actually, the last time that I saw this kind of projector, aside from now, is really in churches. And before shifting to DLP, they have this kind of overhead projector, and they are using this acetate filters, or yes, papers, that is to provide or to enhance and to support the overhead projector. Next, we have film strip projector. So using the film, it will be projected in a screen as well. The overhead projector will be using the acetate. So for film strip projector, they will be using the films. Okay. Television, that's a thumbs up. Computers, that is a thumbs up also. Audio tape, okay. Are you familiar with this one? Have you seen this one in your respective houses? Okay. Are we still using this one? How important it is in the teaching learning process. Actually, if you have a cassette or a radio recorder there, which is commonly, or like everybody term it as a cassette, no? If you have a audio recorder there, you can actually use that one. We have audio player, dioramas, and the chart. So all of these items, all of these illustrations are all thumbs up, which means that the picture is correct. The labels are all correct. All right. So next one, I want you to have a self-check. Okay. Try to reflect. Try to ask yourselves, how did you develop your non-digital instructional materials? Okay. Were there times that you were able to discuss or to make a point in your life that you were given a chance to do a report or to show your creativity in reporting? How did you do that? How's the conduct? Okay. How did you develop your non-digital instructional materials? Okay. Next, have I prepared my instructional materials based on the objective of the lesson? Or maybe because you are just forced to do the reporting or to deliver the lesson. Okay. Okay, so try to reflect on this matter. Have I prepared my instructional materials well in advance? Or you are preparing this during the discussion while waiting, okay, while somebody or your group mates are are reporting or giving the topic presentation. Okay, are my instructional materials clear and easy to comprehend? Okay, and does each instructional material contain only the information needed to make my points? Are the texts and images large enough to be seen clearly by the audience? And how about the color, the harmony of the color? Was the color or the color harmony observed? Okay, so try to do the self-checking. Right from this moment, kindly reflect on these questions that might help you to recreate, to reinvent an instructional materials that is valuable or useful in your field. Okay, next, another self-check. Okay, okay, this is just the same. No, you will be preparing an instructional material and try to rediscover your creativity and passion in preparing an instructional material. This is actually tedious. This is very tiring. It takes some time, but it will actually lead to a learner a better understanding of the lesson. Now, if you think it is not necessary to make use of instructional material, most especially the conventional one, in relation to your topic, then choose an instructional material, conventional material that is suited to your topic. Okay. Okay, so that's it. That's it for that is for the today's discussion. I will not be asking you any activity or output from this recorded video, but I just would like you to do the self-checking. Okay, kindly reflect on these questions that might help you along the way. So that's it for this recorded video, everyone. Wherever you are, whoever you are with, amping kanunay. See you on the next topic, that is topic 2.